The crystal wine glasses clinked against bone china as our family gathered for our traditional Sunday dinner at the Whitmore estate. The long mahogany table gleamed under the chandelier, its golden light bouncing off polished silverware. My father, Richard Whitmore, sat at the head as though he were presiding over a royal court. To his right, my mother adjusted the string of pearls that seemed permanently attached to her throat, and across from me sat my sister, Evelyn, in a crimson designer dress that practically screamed she had already won whatever contest tonight was about. I adjusted the hem of my plain black dress, suddenly aware of how stark it looked against their luxury. At my feet rested the only thing that mattered, a weathered laptop bag, its corners frayed from years of dragging it across labs, libraries, and basements. Inside it lived 5 years of my life, the quantum equilibrium algorithm. The work that had consumed me since graduating from Caltech. I reached for my water glass just as my father began swirling his Bordeaux, the sound of the liquid moving as deliberate as his voice. "Alexandra," he said, stretching my name into something clinical, "we need to discuss your research funding." I froze, fork hovering midair. "What about it?" His eyes glinted. "The board feels it's time to cut our losses." He slid a document across the table with a manicured hand. "We're selling the research division." The air in my chest turned heavy. "What?" Evelyn smirked over the rim of her wine glass. "Finally, that basement lab has been humiliating for the Whitmore name." I forced myself to stay steady. "We're close to a breakthrough. The stability tests, promising isn't profitable," my father cut in. "Whitmore Enterprises needs certainty, not pipe dreams. I've already arranged the sale to Orion Global Tech." Mother dabbed her lips with a linen napkin, her tone a dagger wrapped in silk. "Darling, it's time to do something practical. Look at Evelyn's division, already turning in revenue." "By recycling other people's patents," I muttered. "By making money," Evelyn shot back, smugness dripping like venom. Father shoved the papers closer. "Sign the transfer. Orion is offering $2 million for the project. That's generous. $2 million." I almost laughed. They had no idea. The algorithm wasn't just equations. It was the key to stable quantum computing at room temperature. Every major company had spent decades chasing it, and we were standing on the edge of the cliff. My pulse hammered in my ears, and then buzz, my phone, muffled in my bag, vibrated once, then again, then again. Urgent alerts. Evelyn arched a brow. "Really, Alex, can't even get through dinner without your little gadgets." Ignoring her, I pulled the phone free. 3 messages from the United States Patent Office lit up the screen. My throat went dry. Message 1, Patent 598,374, Quantum Equilibrium Algorithm approved. Message 2, Breakthrough Designation granted. Message 3, Initial bidding interest logged, starting offer $3.8 billion, please advise. The blood drained from my face, then rushed back in a wildfire. I lifted my gaze. Father was already scrawling his signature across the papers, his Montblanc pen leaving neat black trails. "It's done," he declared, closing the folder with a flourish. "Time to join the real world, Alexandra." My voice came out calm, colder than I felt. "Interesting timing." He frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" I turned the phone around so the table could see. The glowing words filled the silence like a gunshot. Mother's fork clattered against porcelain. Evelyn's wine froze midway to her lips. My father's pen slipped from his hand, leaving a dark blot of ink blooming across the white tablecloth. Evelyn's voice cracked. 3.8 billion, billion, I confirmed softly, rising to my feet. I picked up my bag, slinging the strap over my shoulder. "And that's just the starting bid." My father lunged for the papers he had just signed, but I was faster. I slid them into my bag alongside the laptop, every movement deliberate. "These," I said, meeting his stunned eyes, "are worthless because the patents aren't Whitmore Enterprises. They're mine, filed last week under my name, funded by my trust from Grandma Alina. Not a penny of your company's money touched it." His face flushed crimson. "You can't." "Oh, but I did." I heard my grandmother's voice in memory, warm and steady. "Don't let them cage your brilliance, dear." My phone buzzed again. Another notification. Google raising the bid to $4 billion. I tucked the phone away and looked around the table. Evelyn's glass trembled in her hand. Mother sat pale as marble. Father stared at me as though I'd just appended the universe he thought he controlled. I smoothed my dress, standing taller than I ever had in this house. "You wanted me to join the real world, Father. Congratulations." My lips curled into a thin smile. Looks like the real world just joined me. The dining room was silent except for the faint, uneven clink of Evelyn's glass against her teeth. And in that silence, I knew the revolution I had been building in the shadows was no longer mine alone. It had just begun. Father's chair screeched against the marble floor as he shot to his feet, his Bordeaux sloshing over the rim. "You think this little stunt makes you untouchable?" His voice cracked with rage. "Whitmore Enterprises funded every hour you wasted in that basement." I steadied my laptop bag against my hip, meeting his fury with ice. "No, my personal trust from Grandma Aliner funded it. You know, the one you called trivial pocket change at the will reading. That pocket change built 5 years of research and 12 independent filings." Evelyn slammed her glass down, red wine spilling like blood across the tablecloth. "You liar, you're nothing but a parasite living off this family name." I almost laughed. "Funny coming from you. How many of your innovations were stolen from smaller firms who couldn't fight back? Should I list them, or do you still remember the lawsuits father paid to bury?" Her face twisted. But before she could fire back, my phone buzzed again. The screen lit up. "United States Department of Defense, priority request for immediate consultation." I exhaled slowly, letting the words hang. The Pentagon just called. The room froze. Mother's pearls rattled as her hands trembled against her chest. Father's face darkened. Evelyn's eyes flickered with disbelief. I tucked the phone away. "You tried to sell my life's work for $2 million. The federal government is already circling with offers beyond $4 billion, and that was before they saw the military applications." Father slammed his fist against the table, rattling plates and glasses. "This is Whitmore intellectual property. You will not defy me in my own house." I pulled the folder from his side of the table, the one he had proudly signed minutes ago, and flipped it open. "You're right about one thing. This is your house." I tapped the ink smear, staining the signature line. "But these papers, useless, because the patents are mine, independently verified, independently owned." He lunged, trying to rip the folder from my hands. I snapped it shut and held it high. "Touch me again, and I'll walk out that door and let the world know Whitmore Enterprises tried to steal government-classified research. See how long your stock lasts after that." The words hit him harder than any blow. His jaw clenched, his breath ragged. "You wouldn't," he hissed. "Try me." The room went silent but for the ticking of the grandfather clock. I let it drag, savoring the power shift. Finally, I slipped the papers back into my bag and straightened. "I don't need your validation. I don't need your money. What I do have," I said, my voice steady now, "is leverage, and I'm just getting started." I turned toward the door. Evelyn's voice followed me, high-pitched and venomous. "You'll regret this, Alexandra. Father will crush you. He always does." I paused, one hand on the frame, and glanced back. Then he'd better read his contracts more carefully. Father blinked, the first flicker of fear cutting through his fury. "Because the board appointment you made me sign last month, page 47, paragraph 3, in the event of any attempt to appropriate my intellectual property, all your voting shares transfer directly to me." The color drained from his face. I left them in silence, the spilled wine bleeding into the cloth, their empire already cracking beneath them. The Whitmore Enterprises boardroom was never meant to feel like a battlefield, but that morning the polished oak walls and leather chairs might as well have been trenches. 14 board members sat rigid, their eyes darting between me at one end of the table and my father, Richard, clinging to his throne at the other. The company seal glared down from the wall as if it too were judging. "Let's be clear," Father began, his tone sharp enough to cut glass. "My daughter's claims last night were exaggerated. The patents belong to this company, and this so-called transfer of voting rights is a misinterpretation of fine print. Whitmore Enterprises remains under my authority." I didn't bother to sit. Instead, I dropped my laptop bag onto the polished table, the thud echoing through the chamber. "Mr. Patel," I called to the corporate secretary, "please distribute the documents." He hesitated, glancing at Father, then at me before sliding thick folders down the table to each member. One by one, they opened them. "Article 7, Clause 4, I said, my voice steady, enacted the moment my father attempted to force the sale of my intellectual property. As of 9:47 p.m. last night, controlling shares 51% transferred to me." The room erupted in murmurs. Some leaned in, flipping pages faster, others sat frozen. Father slammed his palm on the table. "Impossible. That clause was symbolic. It was never meant to be enforced." I raised an eyebrow. And yet, legally binding. I didn't write it, Father. You did. You just never thought I'd have the courage to use it. Evelyn shot up from her seat, her crimson nails digging into the wood. She's bluffing. She doesn't even belong in this room. She's never attended a board meeting in her life. I smiled faintly. Haven't I? I tapped my tablet. And the large screens on the wall flickered to life. One by one, clips played of board meetings over the past year, maintenance staff rolling in water, assistants clearing cups, interns setting up projectors. Each time the board saw the same thing, a face they had ignored, a janitor, a temp, a server. Each time it was me. The board gasped. Evelyn's voice cracked. That's impossible. Facial modification technology, I explained, pulling a small device from my pocket. One of my patents. Turns out, invisibility is easy when people assume you're beneath notice. Father's knuckles whitened as he gripped his chair. The board will not stand for this manipulation. But before he could finish, Mr. Chen from the audit committee raised a hand. On the contrary, Mr. Whitmore, what we cannot stand for is deception. These documents are airtight. Ms. Whitmore holds controlling interest. My father's mouth opened, then closed, the lion cornered in his own den. I stepped forward, my heels clicking against the floor. This company was built by my grandfather on innovation and integrity. But in your hands, it's become a graveyard of stolen ideas that ends today. I paused, letting the weight of the words settle. Effective immediately, I will be exercising my rights as majority shareholder. The boardroom went still. Every eye was on me now, not as the quiet daughter, not as the overlooked scientist, but as the woman with the power to change everything. I glanced at the phone buzzing in my bag. Another alert: Whitmore stock surges 42% overnight on rumors of breakthrough patent. The revolution had already begun. Cliffhanger: right arrow D letter 1 EABN sang H letter 1 ED3 I4. I placed my tablet on the table, tapping to open a holographic projection. A lattice of shimmering particles filled the air, rotating in perfect harmony. Ladies and gentlemen, I said. As gasps rippled through the room, allow me to show you what my father was about to sell for pocket change. The hologram glowed brighter, painting the walls with light, quantum particles dancing in flawless stability, and with that, the boardroom and the world would never see me the same way again. Gasps rippled through the boardroom as the hologram shimmered into existence, particles of light swirling above the table in a delicate dance. It wasn't a gimmick or a fancy presentation. This was a live simulation, the beating heart of my life's work. Quantum stability at room temperature, I said, my voice cutting through the stunned silence. No decoherence, no collapse, perfect synchronization. The board members leaned forward, the glow of the display reflected in their wide eyes. My father sat rigid, his face draining of color as he recognized what he was looking at. This, his voice faltered, then hardened. This isn't possible. Every attempt has failed. The reports, I interrupted smoothly, were decoys, crafted carefully, I might add, because I knew Evelyn would try to steal them. You taught me that, sister, how to cover my real tracks. Evelyn's jaw dropped. You tricked us. I laughed softly. The sound foreign even to my own ears. No, I protected myself from you, from him, from anyone who thought I was just the quiet one in the basement. I swiped across my tablet and the hologram split into streams of data, encrypted files, patent confirmations, laboratory results. And it isn't just one breakthrough. The quantum equilibrium algorithm is the foundation. I've already filed 12 patents built on it: quantum encryption, quantum storage. Even medical applications. Medical, whispered Dr. Rivera, a board member who had been silent until now. I nodded. Protein folding solved in hours. Cancer modeling that would take supercomputers decades, done in a day. The words landed like thunder. Mother's pearl necklace rattled as her hand trembled against her chest. Evelyn clutched the edge of the table as if it might steady her collapsing world. Another buzz from my phone. I glanced down. Bidding update $4, $5 billion, interest from Google, Amazon, DARPA. I looked back up, locking eyes with my father. You wanted to sell this for $2 million, pocket change. The hologram shifted again, now displaying the encryption module, perfect quantum locks that no hacker, no matter how advanced, could break. The military implications alone made half the board whisper nervously. This is treason, my father spat, his voice rising. You're gambling with national security. No, I said evenly. I'm shaping it, and unlike you, I didn't bury this company's soul under corporate theft. I'm offering us a chance to return to what Whitmore Enterprises was meant to be: pioneers, not parasites. The boardroom doors opened suddenly. A courier stepped in, breathless, carrying a sealed envelope. He walked straight to me. MS Whitmore from the Department of Defense. I opened it, scanning quickly. A meeting request, immediate, non-negotiable. I folded the paper slowly, feeling every eye on me. It seems the government doesn't think my work is worthless. They're calling it a matter of national priority. The silence that followed was suffocating. My father's face had gone an alarming shade of gray. Evelyn looked like she might faint, and the board, half terrified, half electrified, was leaning toward me, not him. I closed the hologram with a swipe, leaving only the afterimage of light in the stunned room. Gentlemen, ladies, I said, you've just seen what we nearly lost, but this is only the beginning. The Whitmore Enterprises boardroom had never felt so small. 14 directors sat in their leather chairs, backs stiff, eyes darting between my father at the head of the table and me at the opposite end. The polished mahogany gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights, but no amount of polish could hide the cracks running through this empire. The corporate secretary cleared his throat. This emergency meeting will now come to order. His voice shook. I stood, laptop bag at my side, calm despite the storm swirling around me. My father leaned forward, gripping the armrest so hard his knuckles turned bone white. Evelyn perched at his side, dressed sharply in navy blue, her posture screaming authority she no longer had. Before anyone else could speak, Father's voice thundered. Let's begin with facts. My daughter, this girl, has been spinning fantasies. Those patents are not hers. They were funded by Whitmore Enterprises. Every cent belongs to this company. To its shareholders, I didn't flinch. Correction, they belong to this company's majority shareholder. A ripple moved through the room. I placed a thick folder onto the table, sliding copies toward the secretary. Article 7, Clause 4, you all have it in front of you, signed by my father. Activated the moment he attempted to sell my intellectual property. Effective as of last night, 51% of Whitmore Enterprises' voting shares are mine. Murmurs broke out like sparks in dry brush. Father slammed his palm down, rattling coffee cups. Symbolic, that clause was never meant to be enacted. It was a ceremonial safeguard, a legally binding safeguard. I cut in, my tone even. You wrote it yourself. You gambled I'd never have the courage to use it. You were wrong. Evelyn leapt to her feet, face flushed crimson. She doesn't even belong here. She's never attended a single board meeting. She doesn't understand this company, our structure, our... I tapped my tablet. The wall screens flickered to life. Grainy video clips filled the room past board meetings. Men and women in background roles, servers pouring water, janitors sweeping floors, interns carrying files. Each face shifted, one after the other, until the truth became undeniable. They were all me. A low gasp moved across the board. Facial modification, I explained, holding up a slim device no larger than a lipstick tube. Another patent in my portfolio. I've been in this room for the past year, watching, listening, gathering every slip, every betrayal. Evelyn's mouth opened, then closed, words strangled in her throat. Mr. Chen from the audit committee cleared his throat. Mr. Whitmore, the documents are clear. The voting shares belong to Alexandra, and these videos, if released publicly, would devastate the company's credibility. Father's jaw locked. You're siding with her after everything I've built. No, Mr. Chen said carefully. We're siding with the law. I let the silence stretch. Then I pressed another button on the tablet. The screens shifted again, this time to files, hundreds of them. Project after project, innovation after innovation, all stamped with Evelyn's name. And beneath them, hidden footnotes, stolen sources, buried lawsuits, destroyed careers. These are the last 5 years of Whitmore innovation, I said coldly. Stolen research from independent labs. Young scientists crushed under our legal department until they had nothing left, all orchestrated by your golden daughter. Evelyn shot forward, face twisted. That's slander, really. I swiped again. Emails filled the screens. Evelyn's correspondence, instructions to bury evidence, direct payments to informants leaking competitors' designs. Each line was a dagger. The boardroom erupted. Shouts overlapped, directors leaning across the table, pointing fingers. Evelyn backed away as though the evidence might burn her alive. Father tried to roar over the chaos. This is family business. It doesn't concern. This is corporate fraud. I snapped, my voice louder than his. and it concerns every shareholder in this company. At my signal, the doors opened. A group entered, faces worn but proud, men and women who had once worked in these halls before Evelyn destroyed them. Scientists, engineers, innovators. These people, I said, gesturing toward them, are the rightful leaders of our divisions, fired illegally for refusing to let Evelyn steal their research. Effective immediately, they're reinstated, and they'll answer only to me. The boardroom fell into stunned silence. My father's face turned a dangerous shade of red. Evelyn looked as if the ground had collapsed beneath her. Absurd, father hissed. You can't just install. I can, I said evenly, and I will. Because I am the controlling shareholder, because Whitmore Enterprises is hemorrhaging legitimacy, and because without me, this company has no future. Another buzz from my phone. I checked it briefly, then turned the screen so they could all see. Current bidding, $5, $2 billion, interest from multiple governments. The numbers glared at them like neon fire. This, I said, sliding the phone back, is the world demanding to be part of what I've built. And you, I looked directly at my father, nearly sold it for $2 million. He slumped back in his chair, the weight of defeat pressing down like iron. Evelyn whispered something frantic in his ear. But he didn't respond. I stood straighter. This meeting isn't about whether I lead, that's already decided. This meeting is about whether Whitmore Enterprises survives, and if it does, it will be by returning to what my grandfather founded it to be: innovation, integrity, revolution. The board stared at me, some fright and some awed, all caught in the gravitational pull of inevitability. I closed my laptop, the sound sharp as a gunshot. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the new era. Cliffhanger right arrow D letter 1 EABN sang H letter 1 ED3 I6. Before anyone could move, the screens flickered again, this time not from my tablet. A hidden feed activated, blueprints, schematics, underground tunnels, gasps erupted. Project Phoenix, I said calmly, letting the words hang in the charged air. You've seen the patents, now it's time to see what I've really been building. The boardroom lights dimmed as the encrypted feed overtook the screens. Lines of blueprints unrolled like veins across the glass panels, corridors, chambers, reinforced walls buried hundreds of feet underground. The words Project Phoenix stamped in bold white letters cut across the schematics. Gasps echoed. One director muttered, "This isn't real." Another whispered, "God help us." I stepped forward, my voice calm. It's real, 3 years in construction. Privately funded, completely invisible to Whitmore surveillance. The screen zoomed into a 3D rendering, a facility the size of a city block built beneath the nondescript warehouse the company had dismissed as my toy lab. Rows of quantum servers glowed in pale blue, miles of fiber cables threading like arteries, chambers sealed by biometric locks. Evelyn shot to her feet, her composure shattered. Impossible. We monitor every permit, every expense. There's no way. You were too busy stealing outdated tech to notice the real work happening under your feet, I said. The screen flickered again, this time live video. Cameras swept through gleaming halls lined with reinforced glass. Engineers in lab coats moved with purpose, machines hummed like a hive. At the core, a sphere of shimmering light pulsed inside a containment chamber, the quantum stability lattice in action. Dr. Rivera, one of the reinstated scientists, stepped forward beside me. Her voice carried the conviction of someone who had fought too long to be ignored. 3 weeks ago, Project Phoenix achieved quantum supremacy. Last week, we solved protein folding calculations that would take traditional supercomputers centuries. Yesterday, she tapped the screen, we cracked atmospheric carbon capture at scale. The board erupted. Some directors leaned forward, jaws slack. Others recoiled as if the light on the screen might scorch them. Father's voice rasped, hoarse with disbelief. You hid this from me." I looked at him steadily. "You laughed at me when I first proposed the algorithm. You gave the funding to Evelyn instead. That day I realized innovation had to be hidden from those who'd strangle it. So yes, I hid it, and while you played empire, I built a revolution." Evelyn slammed her hand against the table. "This is madness. You're gambling with forces you don't understand. The markets, the military, governments, they'll eat you alive." "Funny," I said, turning the tablet, because right now they're begging to be at the table. The bidding numbers glowed higher, $6, $3 billion, climbing fast, but I ignored them. I didn't build Phoenix to sell it. I built it to change the world. The feed shifted again. Results scrolled across the screens. Cancer protein mappings, solved in hours. Climate models, predicting shifts down to city blocks. Quantum encryption, unbreakable. Rendering current cybersecurity obsolete. The board members whispered furiously. The stock ticker in the corner of the screen surged. Whitmore Enterprises up 89%, 90%, climbing still. I turned back to the directors. This company has been living off theft, intimidation, and shortcuts. That ends today. Phoenix is proof that real innovation is not dead, it's alive, and it's ours. Father half rose from his chair, his voice a strained growl. You're dismantling everything I built. No, I said softly. I'm saving it. The doors opened again. A second group filed in. Scientists Evelyn had blacklisted, engineers driven out. Their faces shone with vindication as they stood behind me. These people are your new department heads, I announced, effective immediately. Evelyn's eyes went wide. You can't, they were terminated. Illegally terminated, I cut in. Because they refused to let you steal their work, and now they're back. The boardroom fell into chaos. Shouts overlapped, chairs scraped. Evelyn's protests drowned under the storm. Father sat frozen, eyes locked on the live feed of the underground facility. For the first time, he looked small. I raised my hand and the noise died. Directors, you wanted proof of my leadership. Phoenix is your proof. This isn't about me seizing power. It's about restoring what this company was meant to be. My grandfather built Whitmore on real innovation. I intend to honor that legacy. I tapped the screen and the facility camera zoomed out, showing the sheer scale of it, larger than 3 football fields, glowing like a new sun beneath the earth. Gentlemen, ladies, I said, welcome to the dawn of the quantum era. Cliffhanger right arrow D letter 1 EABN sang H letter 1 ED3 I7. At that moment, every phone in the room buzzed at once. Directors fumbled for their devices. Headlines blazed across the screens. FBI opens investigation into Whitmore Enterprises corporate espionage. Evelyn Whitmore named in initial filing. All eyes swiveled to Evelyn. Her face went pale, then crimson. She shot to her feet, screaming, "You set me up." Security guards entered the boardroom. I turned, my voice calm. "No, Evelyn, you set yourself up. Now it's time to face the consequences." The guards approached her chair as the board watched in stunned silence. And in that silence, I knew the purge had begun. The boardroom was silent except for the steady thump of security boots. 2 agents in dark suits stepped inside, their presence as heavy as a verdict. Every director turned to watch as they closed in on Evelyn. She recoiled, knocking her chair backward with a screech. "You can't just drag me out of here. I'm a Whitmore. This is our company." The taller agent held up a warrant. "Evelyn Whitmore, you're wanted for questioning in connection with corporate espionage, wire fraud, and destruction of proprietary research." Gasps rippled through the room. My father surged forward, face flushed. "This is outrageous. You have no right to humiliate my daughter in front of this board." I met his fury with calm steel. "No, father, she humiliated herself. 5 years of theft, buried lawsuits, destroyed careers. The FBI didn't need me to fabricate a thing. They simply needed me to stop shielding her sins." Evelyn twisted toward me, eyes blazing with venom. "You think this makes you better than me? You're still the quiet freak who hid in the basement while I ran the empire." I stepped closer, lowering my voice so the board would lean in to catch every word. "No, Evelyn, you ran a graveyard. I built a revolution." The agent seized her arms. She shrieked, heels scraping the polished floor as they dragged her toward the doors. "This isn't over, Alexandra. You'll regret this, you hear me. You'll regret this." The doors slammed behind her, her voice echoing like a ghost down the marble halls. Silence settled like ash. My father slumped back into his chair, his once commanding presence now shrunk and hollow. "You've destroyed this family," he muttered, almost to himself. "Your sister, your own blood." I studied him. "She destroyed herself when she chose theft over integrity. You destroyed her when you rewarded that theft. I didn't ruin this family, father. I'm cleaning up the rot you let spread." The directors exchanged glances, some nodding almost imperceptibly. They were beginning to see the truth. I turned to them. "Evelyn's purge is only the beginning. Effective immediately, the executive floor is dissolved. Every division head installed under her reign is suspended pending review. Those who built their careers on theft will not survive the audit. Those who were buried will be reinstated." A wave of murmurs surged across the table. Dr. Rivera stepped forward, her chin high. I've already compiled a list of researchers Evelyn blacklisted. Dozens of them are ready to return. Many of them were years ahead of their time before their work was stolen. Good, I said. Bring them back. Let's build again on what was real. One director, a silver-haired man named Aldridge, leaned forward. Ms. Whitmore, you're asking us to gut half the company overnight. Investors will panic. Stability will collapse. I met his concern head-on. Stability is already gone. The world knows Evelyn is under investigation. The only way forward is through transparency and rebirth. You've seen Phoenix. You've seen what's possible. That is our stability now. The stock ticker in the corner surged higher as if to punctuate my words. Father's voice rasped. You think they'll follow you? You think you can lead men who built empires while you tinkered in a basement? I stepped closer to him, every eye in the room locked on us. They're not following me because of my name. They're following because of results. Because for the first time in decades, Whitmore Enterprises is innovating again. I leaned down, my voice a whisper only he could hear. You always told me I wasn't strong enough to lead. You were right, I'm stronger. His eyes burned, but he said nothing. Straightening, I addressed the room. Effective immediately, we are launching a full audit of Evelyn's division. Every stolen innovation, every buried researcher, every fraudulent claim will be dragged into the light. Those responsible will face justice. Those betrayed will rise again. The board members nodded, some reluctantly, others with visible relief. The tide had turned. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen. Whitmore Enterprises stock plus 102%. Breaking, investors hail quantum revolution. I looked up. Gentlemen, ladies, you wanted a leader. You've got one. And I promise you this, Whitmore Enterprises will no longer be a parasite, will be a beacon. The boardroom filled with cautious applause. Not raucous, not yet, but enough. Enough to signal that the purge was complete. Cliffhanger right arrow D letter 1 EABN sang H letter 1 ED3 I8. As the applause faded, the corporate secretary hurried back into the room, pale and breathless. He clutched a tablet, his voice cracking. Ms. Whitmore, you need to see this. On the screen, live footage from the Phoenix facility. The containment sphere was glowing hotter, brighter, pulsing with energy beyond prediction. Alarms blared in the background. Engineers rushed to stabilize the system. I stared, the applause dying around me. Project Phoenix, the secretary whispered, something's happening. The boardroom's air shifted from applause to panic in seconds. The secretary's tablet shook in his hands as the live feed from Project Phoenix filled the screens, the containment sphere pulsing brighter, its light bleeding into every corner of the underground facility. Alarms shrieked. Engineers in lab coats sprinted between consoles. My pulse quickened, but my voice stayed calm. Patch me in now. The secretary fumbled with the controls. The feed sharpened, and Dr. Patel, Phoenix's lead systems engineer, appeared on the screen, her face bathed in blue light. Alexandra, we're stabilizing, but the lattice is overloading. The algorithm is pulling more power than projected. Behind her, sparks cascaded from a panel, technicians shouting over the roar of machinery. The board members gasped. Father leaned forward, seizing the chance to strike. You see, this is what happens when children play with matches. You're gambling with forces you don't understand. I cut him off, mute him. The secretary hesitated, then obeyed. The room went blessedly silent except for the hum of the feed. Dr. Patel, I said firmly, run sequence Gamma 3, redirect excess energy into the auxiliary superconductors. She nodded without hesitation. On it, technicians scrambled. The sphere's furious pulsing slowed, dimming until its glow steadied into a controlled thrum. The alarms tapered off. A wave of relief spread across the facility and across the boardroom. Patel reappeared, sweat streaking her temple. Stabilized, margin of error within safe thresholds. Phoenix is intact. I exhaled quietly. Good work. Document every adjustment. Phoenix doesn't fail, we learn. The feed cut, leaving the boardroom in stunned silence. One director, pale and trembling, finally spoke. That could have been catastrophic. I met his gaze head on. No. That was proof that this company can stare chaos in the face and not flinch. Proof that the people you buried, your scientists, your engineers, are the ones who can save us. Dr. Rivera stepped forward from behind me, her voice steady. She's right. Evelyn destroyed lives. We can rebuild them. We can lead again. I turned to the board. Effective immediately, Whitmore Enterprises will reinstate every researcher wrongfully terminated under Evelyn's watch. They'll head their own divisions, free from politics and theft. Phoenix isn't mine alone, it's theirs too. The directors shifted uneasily, some protested. Aldridge, the silver-haired skeptic, leaned forward, reinstating blacklisted scientists. Alexandra, that's madness. They'll resent us. They'll turn on you the first chance they get. Or, I countered, they'll remember who gave them their lives back, who handed them the keys to the labs Evelyn burned. Trust is built in silence, Aldridge. Quiet revolutions don't announce themselves, they grow steady and unstoppable. The phrase hung in the air, quiet revolutions. I saw several board members nod, slowly, reluctantly. They understood. My father finally found his voice, low and bitter. You think you can erase me, erase everything I built. I turned to him. I'm not erasing you, I'm correcting you. You raised this company on intimidation and theft. I'm raising it on innovation and truth. History will decide which legacy endures. His face twisted, but he stayed silent. The boardroom doors opened, and the first wave of reinstated scientists entered. Men and women whose work Evelyn had buried, their faces lined with years of injustice. They walked with quiet dignity, carrying stacks of research files, prototypes, and laptops. I gestured toward them. These are your new leaders. They don't wear pearls or designer suits. They wear scars, and those scars will shape the future. One of them, Dr. Nguyen, spoke softly. Thank you for giving us back what was ours. I nodded. Don't thank me. Build something that makes the world thank you. The boardroom filled with murmurs again, not disbelief this time, but something else. Anticipation. My phone buzzed on the table. A new headline flashed across the screen. U.S. government declares Project Phoenix critical national asset. Emergency session scheduled in Washington. I looked up, the weight of the words sinking in. The silent revolution inside Whitmore had already spilled outward. The world wasn't just watching anymore. It was moving. The private jet touched down at Andrews Air Force Base just after dawn. The sky was painted in streaks of crimson and gold, but the air outside felt colder than steel. Waiting at the foot of the stairs were two black SUVs, engines idling, windows tinted. A man in a dark suit stepped forward, flashing credentials I didn't bother to read. MS Whitmore, he said, the committee is waiting. Inside the Capitol, cameras swiveled as I entered the chamber. Senators filled the long mahogany benches, staffers whispering furiously into earpieces. At the center, a placard read, Emergency Session on Project Phoenix. The room was heavy with suspicion, curiosity, fear. A senator cleared his throat, his voice carrying over the hum. MS Whitmore, you stand before us today as the controlling shareholder of Whitmore Enterprises. According to federal records, your facility, Project Phoenix, has achieved breakthroughs with military, medical, and environmental consequences. We need to know whether this is a weapon or a gift. All eyes fell on me. I stood tall, blazer crisp, laptop in hand. Project Phoenix is neither a weapon nor a toy. It is the culmination of 5 years of hidden labor, protected from those who would exploit it. In the right hands, it can cure cancer, halt climate collapse, and secure communications. In the wrong hands, I let the pause linger. It can rewrite civilization. Chamber erupted in murmurs. Another senator, sharp-eyed and gray-haired, leaned forward. And which hands, MS Whitmore, do you believe are the right ones? Before I could answer, the doors at the back of the chamber opened. The sound of polished shoes on marble echoed like gunshots. My father strode in, flanked by Evelyn's attorneys, his presence as defiant as ever. He hadn't been summoned, but of course he came. He lived for stages like this. Senators, he boomed. You are being misled by a reckless child. My daughter has usurped control of Whitmore Enterprises through deception and legal trickery. She is dangerous. You cannot trust her with technology of this magnitude. Gasps spread through the chamber. He positioned himself not just as my rival, but as my accuser. I kept my voice steady. With respect, Father, the patents are legally mine. The shares are legally mine. The facility was built without a cent of company money. You call me reckless. You tried to sell my life's work for $2 million while the world bids billions. Senators leaned forward, torn between us. This was no longer just a hearing, it was a duel. Father's eyes blazed. She hides behind technicalities. She undermines family, legacy, everything this nation's businesses are built on. I met his fury with calm steel. Legacy means nothing if it's rotted. Innovation built on theft is no legacy, it's a crime. The only thing I undermined was corruption. For a moment, the chamber was utterly still. Then a young senator from California spoke, her voice cutting through. MS, Whitmore, your father claims you're motivated by vengeance, that this is personal. What do you say to that? I drew a breath. The truth wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Yes, it is personal. My family tried to bury me. They mocked me, stole from me, erased me. But personal doesn't mean wrong. It means I know exactly what's at stake. This isn't about revenge, it's about survival. And survival demands revolution. The phrase landed like thunder. Across the chamber, Father's jaw tightened. He knew I had taken his last weapon, the narrative, and bent it to my will. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced down, breaking FBI raids Whitmore Innovation Division. Evidence of espionage confirmed. Evelyn Whitmore expected to face indictment. I slid the phone back, locking eyes with my father, his face drained of color for the first time. He looked mortal, but before I could savor the moment, the senator at the head of the committee raised a hand. MS, Whitmore, you speak of survival and revolution, but revolutions often come with costs. Tell us plainly, what are you willing to sacrifice? The question hung in the air, heavier than any before. The cameras zoomed closer. The whole country was watching. I hesitated, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I knew saying it aloud would change everything. Finally, I spoke. If it means saving lives, rebuilding trust, and ensuring Phoenix never becomes a weapon in the wrong hands, I am willing to sacrifice everything, even Whitmore itself. The chamber erupted. Senators shouted over one another. Staffers scrambled. Journalists typed furiously. My father's voice roared above the chaos. Traitor. I stood firm, my voice steady, clear, unshakable. No, patriot. The chamber fell into stunned silence. The chairman's words echoed like a gunshot. Cyber attack on national infrastructure. One by one, senators turned to their aides, who whispered frantic updates. Power grids faltering, air traffic control signals scrambled, financial exchanges blinking in and out. Screens in the chamber lit up with live feeds, planes circling and holding patterns, blackouts sweeping across cities. And then, as if choreographed by fate, every eye swung back to me. Father stood, seizing the silence. Do you see? This is what happens when she plays God. She builds toys she cannot control, and the entire country suffers. You must put Phoenix under government custody immediately before she brings us all down. Gasps rippled, but I didn't let his words take root. I rose from my seat, calm but sharp. With respect, Father, Phoenix didn't cause this attack. Phoenix is the only thing capable of stopping it. The chairman leaned forward. Are you telling us you can neutralize this in real time? I opened my laptop, the familiar hum of its processors grounding me. I'm telling you that the quantum equilibrium algorithm was built for stability in chaos. While classical systems drown in noise, Phoenix thrives in it. Feed me the attack vectors. I'll shut it down. The chamber filled with disbelief. A senator barked, "You expect us to hand national security to a civilian?" I met his eyes without blinking. Not a civilian, the only person on Earth who understands this system. You have two choices: let Phoenix work or watch the grid collapse. The chairman hesitated, then he nodded to a defense aide. Give her access. Within minutes, secure cables snaked across the chamber, linking my laptop to government servers. Streams of corrupted code cascaded down my screen, an avalanche of malicious data designed to fracture the nation's nervous system. I inhaled, my fingers flew. Stability lattice engage, partition chaos variables, redirect noise to quantum nodes. The algorithm roared to life. My screen erupted in shimmering patterns, fractals of light weaving into order. The boardroom chamber seemed to hold its breath as the code shifted, stabilized, locked into harmony. Across the monitors, power grids flickered back online. Planes resumed descent. Stock exchanges reconnected. Applause broke out, not from the public gallery, not yet, but from the engineers on the feed as they reported systems returning to normal. One senator whispered, "She did it." Another said louder, "She just stopped the biggest cyber attack in U.S. history." I exhaled, closing the laptop with a snap. That was Phoenix's first dawn. Imagine what it can do when fully unleashed. The chamber buzzed with awe, but Father wasn't finished. He surged forward, voice raw. "Don't be fooled. This isn't salvation, it's dictatorship by algorithm. Today she saves you, tomorrow she rules you. Do not hand her the keys to the Republic." I turned slowly, locking eyes with him. "I don't want to rule, Father. I want to rebuild. There's a difference you never understood. For a moment he faltered, just a moment, then the chairman rose. Ms. Whitmore, the committee will convene on the question of Project Phoenix's future, government custody or your stewardship, but for now this country owes you thanks. The chamber erupted in applause, reporters shouting questions. Cameras flashing like lightning. I gathered my laptop bag, standing tall. This isn't about thanks, it's about responsibility, and responsibility doesn't wait for permission. As I walked out, aides and senators trailing, my phone buzzed. A single encrypted message flashed across the screen. The attack wasn't foreign. It came from inside Whitmore Enterprises, division remnants loyal to your father. I stopped cold, heart hammering. My father's eyes met mine across the chamber as security closed in around him. He smiled faintly, the smile of a man who had just lit the next fuse. The applause from the Capitol chamber still echoed in my ears when I returned to the car waiting outside. To the world, I was the woman who had stopped the largest cyber attack in American history. To me, the victory felt hollow. The message on my phone replayed in my mind like a gun cocked and ready. The attack wasn't foreign. It came from inside Whitmore Enterprises, division remnants loyal to your father. The ride back to headquarters was silent. The city blurring past in streaks of light and shadow. Dr. Rivera sat across from me, her brows furrowed. If that message is true, Alexandra, then Phoenix isn't just a tool to protect us. It's a target, and the enemy isn't out there, it's in here. I nodded slowly, which means this isn't over, it's only beginning. When I entered the Whitmore Tower, the atmosphere was different. The once oppressive halls hummed with a new energy, researchers walking freely, doors open. Conversations unguarded. The silent revolution was working, but underneath it all, I felt the weight of eyes on me. Watching, waiting. In the boardroom, the reinstated scientists gathered around, presenting their latest findings: cancer protein mapping nearing clinical trials, carbon capture scaling prototypes, encryption modules already in demand. It should have been triumphant. Instead, my gut tightened. Mr. Aldridge, the silver-haired director who had opposed me before, cleared his throat. Ms. Whitmore, impressive as Phoenix is, some investors are concerned. They worry about your unilateral control. They argue Phoenix belongs to the board, not you alone. The words were measured, but I heard the knife hidden in them. You mean my father's allies, I said flatly. His gaze didn't waver. They believe Richard Whitmore still embodies stability, that he could return if he hesitated, but the meaning was clear: if I fell that night. I stayed in the lab beneath the tower, Phoenix's pulse glowing across the glass walls. Dr. Patel adjusted monitors while I reviewed logs. That was when the breach alert flashed red across the console. Unauthorized access detected. Origin, Whitmore Enterprises' internal network. My blood ran cold. Shut it down, Patel cried. They're trying to override Phoenix's core lattice. Code poured across the screens, familiar, ruthless, efficient. Not the clumsy hand of outsiders. This was Whitmore code, my family's code. I typed furiously, rerouting pathways, sealing firewalls. They're inside, I hissed. They know the architecture. They've studied me for years. The lattice shimmered violently, its glow fluctuating. If they succeeded, Phoenix wouldn't just collapse, it could implode, releasing an energy surge that would cripple the facility and everyone in it. Patel's hands shook. They're rewriting the fail-safes. Whoever's behind this, they know your algorithm almost as well as you. And then it hit me. Evelyn, even behind bars. She had left loyalists embedded deep inside the company, and they were using her stolen decoys, her fragments of my work, against me. I slammed my fist onto the console, rage boiling. Not again, not this time. Redirect the attack through the decoy channels, I ordered. Patel hesitated. The ones Evelyn thought were real. Let her loyalists choke on false data. We executed the command. The lattice flared dangerously bright, then stabilized. On the network logs, the intruders bit down hard on the bait, flooding their systems with corrupted loops disguised as quantum results. Patel exhaled shakily. They'll think they've succeeded. Until their systems collapse from the feedback, I said grimly. The breach alerts faded. Phoenix's glow returned to steady, perfect symmetry. But the damage wasn't technical, it was personal. They had come for me from within my own house. The next morning, I convened the board. Documents scattered across the table, evidence of the breach displayed on the screens. Some directors avoided my gaze, others looked shaken. This, I said, voice cutting, was an attack not from Russia, not from China, but from our own divisions. Remnants who still serve Richard and Evelyn. Let this be clear. Anyone loyal to them is loyal to Betrayal. Aldridge bristled. You can't purge half the company in one stroke. Investors will. Investors already know. I interrupted, tossing the encrypted report onto the table. Phoenix saved the nation yesterday. Today, it nearly died because of traitors among us. If investors want stability, they'll see purging corruption is the only path forward. The room was tense, but slowly, one by one, heads nodded. I ended the session with finality. Richard Whitmore thought he could cage me. Evelyn thought she could outwit me. They forgot the truth. Quiet ones build revolutions. And revolutions don't stop halfway. That evening, as I stood alone in my grandfather's restored office, the city lights sprawling beneath me, my phone buzzed. A video file. I opened it and froze. On the screen, Evelyn in an interrogation room smirked at the camera. Her voice was calm, measured, venomous. You think Phoenix is yours, Alexandra? You think you've won? Phoenix isn't your revolution, it's our weapon. And when it burns the world, it will carry the Whitmore name, not yours. The file ended. And my blood ran cold. The video ended, leaving the office dark except for the faint glow of the city beyond the glass. Evelyn's smirk lingered in my mind like a stain I couldn't scrub clean. Phoenix isn't your revolution, it's our weapon. For the first time since this began, I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Dr. Rivera entered quietly, holding a file. Alexandra, we've found something in the Phoenix code base. You'd better see this. I opened the file, my chest tightened. Buried deep inside the lattice framework, hidden under layers of equations, was a fragment that didn't belong. Elegant, poisonous, unmistakable, Evelyn's signature. A Trojan horse, a kill switch disguised as an optimization. Rivera's voice was low. It's dormant for now, but if triggered, it could invert the lattice. Turn Phoenix into a destabilizer instead of a stabilizer. The entire facility, the entire algorithm weaponized. The realization hit like ice water. Evelyn hadn't just tried to steal my work, she had infected it. My revolution carried her fingerprints. The board met in secret that night. The directors sat pale and restless as I laid out the truth. Evelyn's virus is inside Phoenix, I said. We can contain it, but removal means tearing apart the lattice itself. We risk losing everything. Aldridge, ever the skeptic, seized the moment. Then we have no choice. Shut it down, hand Phoenix to the government. Better dead than corrupted. Father, seated in the shadows of the chamber, leaned forward, his voice gravel and venom. I warned you, I warned them. You thought yourself a savior, Alexandra, but you've built the very noose that will hang us all. I stared at him. No, Father, you and Evelyn forged that noose. I just refused to wear it. The room erupted, directors arguing, voices overlapping. Some demanded dismantling Phoenix, others urged containment. The weight of the decision pressed down on me like a mountain. Finally, I raised my hand. Silence fell. This isn't about choosing between destruction and surrender. It's about proving that revolutions can survive the shadows. My grandfather taught me, watch out for the quiet ones. They're the ones building the future. Phoenix is that future. I won't bury it. Back in the lab, the lattice pulsed, steady but tainted. I stood before it, my reflection fractured in the glass. Patel approached nervously. If you dive into the lattice to rewrite it manually, there's no guarantee you'll come back. One error and the feedback could. I know, I said softly, but if Evelyn thought she could own my revolution, then I have to cut her out completely, even if it kills me. Rivera placed a hand on my shoulder. You don't have to do this alone. Yes, I do. I slipped on the interface gloves, connected the neural link. The world dissolved into streams of light and sound, billions of qubits spiraling, collapsing, exploding. Phoenix's lattice surrounded me alive. Humming, and within it, Evelyn's infection writhed like oil in water. Her voice echoed in my memory. When it burns the world, it will carry the Whitmore name. Not anymore. I lunged into the code, tearing apart the false threads, redirecting noise into infinite loops, isolating the infection. It fought back, clawing at the lattice, threatening collapse. My body shook in the real world, alarms blaring. Patel shouted, she's losing her vitals. Rivera's voice broke through, hold the line, Alex. I gritted my teeth, driving the final command like a spear through Evelyn's virus. For a moment, everything went white, silence, then the lattice pulsed again, steady, pure. Evelyn's signature was gone. When I pulled off the gloves, sweat poured down my face. My hands shook, but I was alive. The lattice behind the glass shimmered, stable and untarnished. Phoenix was clean. The boardroom the next day was hushed. Directors waited for me to speak, eyes wide with something I hadn't seen before, not fear, not skepticism, but respect. Phoenix is secure, I said. The infection is gone, but let this be a warning. Revolutions are not safe. They are dangerous. They demand sacrifice. Evelyn wanted a weapon. My father wanted control. I chose something harder, responsibility. I let the words settle. Whitmore Enterprises will not just survive. It will lead not through theft or intimidation, but through innovation that heals. Somewhere in the shadows, father lowered his gaze. For once he had no words. Weeks later, I stood in my grandfather's restored office, the morning sun painting the city in gold. Behind me, the wall was lined with patents, his and mine side by side. My phone buzzed. A message from Phoenix's medical division. First patients responding. Cancer remission at 98%. Trials approved for expansion. I smiled faintly, thinking of Aliner's voice. Don't let them cage your brilliance, dear. The world outside was still broken, still dangerous, but for the first time I felt the horizon tilt forward, not into chaos, but into possibility. Alexandra Whitmore's story isn't just about quantum codes, boardroom wars, or billion-dollar patents. It's about something deeper, the power of resilience, the courage to stand tall when even your own family tries to break you, and the quiet strength that builds revolutions in the shadows. She faced betrayal, manipulation, and sabotage. Yet in the end, she chose responsibility over revenge, integrity over profit, and sacrifice over comfort. Phoenix wasn't just a breakthrough in science, it was proof that true innovation requires risk, pain, and vision. And perhaps that's the lesson for all of us, that sometimes the ones overlooked, underestimated, even mocked are the very ones who change the world. If Alexandra's journey moved you, inspired you, or kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Give this video a like, share it with your friends, and drop a comment below. Backhand index pointing right. What did this story mean to you? Backhand index pointing right. Do you believe quiet revolutions are happening around us today? Your support helps us bring more powerful stories of courage, betrayal, and redemption to life. So stay with us because the next revolution is just beginning.